wouldn't have clashed with Stuart today.
No, I think I'm clashing with everything.
Except me.
I'm glitching the matrix today. I am. But I have a big on-off knob. Right, so.
Is the camera rolling?
Yeah. Brilliant.
But I'm editing, so.
Right, am I standing in the right place, just for purposes of the...
Perfect place for the
Thank
perfect,
you.
light. You look fantastic, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Co-host. Morning, everybody. Morning, and welcome to the BiZHUB, where we connect, learn, grow, and get inspired about our businesses. I'm Stuart, I'm your host. This is the owner, the founder, the driving force behind Signal. It's Emma Selby.
Morning, everybody.
And thank you very much for coming out today. It's not the greatest day. It is October, so we'll forgive it. It's warm, but it's a bit rainy.
Thank you for sparing your fuel.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. And thank you to our hosts at the BOSS for allowing us to use their facilities. It's a wonderful place. Maybe not on a day like this, but out on the terrace with a gin, watching some cricket during the summer. Lovely. Can't think of a better place. So, Emma.
Yes.
Talk us through
Take us through it. So, the Signal BiZHUB, as many of you know, meets every Friday. The first 3 Fridays are here at the Bosque, and Mastermind is currently at Martinique House in week 4, isn't it? Yes. So week 1, we have a presentation session with a guest speaker, and us being the 1st of October, this is week 1, and here's our guest speaker. And week 2 is a presentation session also with a guest speaker, but more about key content and learning for your business and skills that you can apply to your own business. Week 3, we all get together and have a bit of a work edit session with a workbook. It's called the collaboration session. And in week 4, Stuart leads the roundtable session that we call Mini Mastermind, where you can bring your challenges and have them listened to and discussed by your own peer group in complete privacy.
Yes, if you're not accountable in your own business because you're the boss, who do you report to? So we make you accountable for your actions and state your goals and work towards them. So it's bigger thinking, more strategic. Next week, speaker we'll get on to, but he's sat over there.
Nervous laugh.
The usual format is our introduction, then we have our speaker, talks for 45 minutes, then we have a mini break, top up your glasses or your cups, and then we have a Q&A session. So all those questions, think about your questions. Lou?
I love a mini break.
Love a mini break.
City break, yeah. So the benefits of the Signal BiZHUB are that you get featured on the Signal website. In fact, we've got more news about that to come a little bit later in October because we're really, really supercharging that particular feature. You get access to all of the previous talks and resources, all of the videos, all of the films that we make of all of these events are available on the back end of the website once you are a member. We've talked about the weekly events, we've talked about the mastermind. Currently we have an active WhatsApp group. That's also changing in October, so look in your inboxes for news about that later on today, actually, because we're changing the platform. And you get to be part of a like-minded business community, which is obviously the most important thing about being a member of a group like this, is the people that you hang out with and spend time with.
Who you mix with matters. Definitely. Okay, so if you're a guest today, please keep an eye out on your inbox. We'll send something to you afterwards. And if you'd like to talk to us about joining the BiZHUB, we're more than happy to have a conversation at the end. But we always offer a common sense disclaimer. Emma.
Oh, am I doing the common sense disclaimer? I've never done it.
Have you never? Okay.
Don't take any of our advice unless you're absolutely certain it's right for your business.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's not advice, it's guidance. Anything you decide to do, take professional advice. If you're unsure, come speak to us and we'll point you at the right...
So I can't read that. It's too small.
We'll point you at the right professional for your business.
Aha. So, get social with Signal. This one I do know about. Make sure that you are with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We've got a LinkedIn group. Our Instagram is really, really great at the moment, I think. There's an awful lot of new content happening, lots of lives, lots of interviews. We're interviewing all of our guest speakers on Instagram Live before they come into the room and do the chat. So do keep an eye out for all of that. And if you're not connected with us on any of those platforms, possibly don't bother with Twitter, but the rest of them, join us. Thank you.
And we're doing 100 shout-outs before Christmas. So
Good point.
Today, I believe it's 185 days till Christmas. I know.
Is that shopping days or actual days?
I think that's actual days. I think that includes Christmas Eve. So yes, 85 days. Okay. So how are we doing with the shout-outs?
Oh, we've done about 6, 7, maybe 8. So what we're doing is, we're meeting out, we're going out into the community, talking to local businesses, going into their places of work quite often, or if they don't want us to do that for any reason, then we just call them in on Instagram and we do it live there. But yes, we've been going out and about in the community, meeting new businesses and just giving them a little bit of an extra push, a little bit of extra promotion for Christmas, our gift to the local business community.
Absolutely. So if you know somebody who might be interested in that, come and talk to Emma or Lou at the end. I'd be more than happy to.
Please, yes.
Or anybody here that wants to shout out.
Yeah. Does anyone have one already? I've spoken to Dane, I've spoken to Alex, but I think that was BiZHUB promotion, so no. I know, Rami, you want one. Yeah. Good.
So yeah, excellent. And as Emma said, we have a LinkedIn local group called LinkedIn Local Autumn and Borden, and it meets at the shed on every third Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's a very informal affair. We meet at the Signal Studio.
We do, where we...
Show their artwork.
Exactly, and we drink Prosecco from the Prosecco tap, normally. And I'm sure by October the 19th we'll be drinking Prosecco again. Good, we've had a little problem with CO2. You might have seen it on the news, but anyway, we got caught out by that one. Yeah, never mind.
So don't want to interrupt the Prosecco's.
No, first world problems, I know. But still, yeah. What's next?
If you're around the BiZHUB for any amount of time, or Signal, we like to celebrate wins. And we say if you don't have a win, you have a learning. So is there anybody who's got a win or a learning who wants to share with us a little something?
We've got some CO2.
And we've got CO2. Yeah, I've got a little win. It's in the early stages, but I'm involved now in creating a designated market at the shed. So we've got fruit and veg coming, we've got meat, we've got fish, we've got plants, possibly cheese, and we're starting to build that market. So that's a win, because having a great market in the new shed town centre.
Yeah, absolutely key and crucial. I know you've worked very hard on that, so well done. We're all relying on you for this market. Yeah, not too much pressure. No.
Fantastic. Did I see your hand up, Cynthia? Did you not?
Sorry. Oh, come on, Cynthia.
Raise their hand over this side. Well, do send them through to us, because we do celebrate them. We will put them on social media and we will give you a shout out. So we blow past our wins as business owners so many times. You win that contract or you do that thing, that project, and you deliver it and you get a really nice bit of feedback. I had a really nice bit of feedback from a customer this week. I've been away for about 6 months and I've come back, and the first project I've been very nervous about, and I babysat it. And I'm collaborating with Matt Kay, who is one of the web developers who is a member of BiZHUB.
He's usually here, but he's clubbing in Manchester this weekend.
Yeah, raving in Manchester. And we've worked through this project, and I delivered it to the customer for his first view of it and the snagging. And I was very nervous, and the WhatsApp message came through that said, I've just spent 2.5 hours, ... the notification. And it was the word just that really kind of made me nervous, and I was flicked to it, and it said, I've just finished, and I've got to say, it's brilliant, I love it. Don't do that to me.
Ouch. Yeah, always. Absolutely.
I said to him, thank you. I said that. I explained it to him. He said, no, you should be more proud of your work. He said, it's excellent. So that's a bit of a win. So I'm pleased about that.
Well done.
Do tell us about your wins, because we will shout about them.
Is Dave, is your news not a win? We can count that as a win, can't we?
Well, my retirement.
Yes.
That's a massive win.
I did announce it last month, but yes.
Yes, you did.
The time has come for me to hang up my pin. So the 10th of December, and the business to my daughter and my son.
Which is a great win. Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, we also, I suppose COVID, the lockdown, and everything else actually gives some businesses some opportunities. So one of the opportunities that we did was to get the business ISO certified, so now 9,000 certification, which for small family businesses actually.
It looks really good, yeah. Good.
So, excellent. And that opens up whole new. Yes.
Tick that box, hand it over. Thanks very much, I'll be really busy. Yeah.
Excellent. Well worked for as well. I've seen you on your journey. Yeah, impressive. Excellent. Emma, do you want to tell us about next week's speaker?
Well, next week's speaker is in the room, and we have a lovely title from Little Acorns. I think we're all familiar with Acorns Coffee and Cake, and the owner and founder over there. And Dane is going to come and tell us about his, a bit different today, because the story that I'm about to introduce, Alex's story, is a 20-year story of success, and Dane's is just an 8-month story of success at this point, but rapid and presenting challenges nonetheless, and successes. So we're all really looking forward to hearing that next week.
And then coming up in November, we've got How Healthy is Your Environment? Doug Johnson. If you don't know Doug, he's been along to BiZHUB.
He was one of my first members about 8 years ago, actually.
Yes, that's very interesting guy. He was into the renewable energy field very early and has grown now, and they've got quite a big team. So he's doing quite well.
And he wins awards like every 5 minutes, as far as I can tell from LinkedIn. But yeah, so it's good.
And he's
Good.
very knowledgeable and fun chap. So looking forward to that one.
Yep.
And then we've got Beat Stress, Create Balance, and Find More Time.
Good, Cynthia. Yeah.
And I was just saying, she looks very intimidating in a photograph. She looks very friendly.
Power jacket.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's on the
Next.
website. It's like really
Okay.
So do come along, do come on for that, and very welcome and pleased to see you here. So you can see the kind of preparation you'll need for this.
Okay, so
Then
the moment has come.
The main event. Emma, please step forward.
Oh, and
Stand and talk into
Pause.
the camera and let me walk out front.
Thank you very much.
hello and good morning. Welcome to the Signal BiZHUB. And this morning I am introducing our guest speaker, Alex Christie. So Alex, if you want to come up. Now, Alex is the managing director of Energi People and set up energy recruitment, its precursor, way back in 2002. So it's a 20-year journey, and it's one that's close to my heart because I was part of it for a brief spell in the middle. I was an employee of Alex's. So here to tell us all about his journey over the last 20 years, and particularly the last 10 years when he took the company from a standing start again, all the way up to a £10 million turnover. So today I bring to you Alex Christie. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you very much,
Take the
Emma.
floor.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. Really nice to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey over the last 20 years and a little bit prior to that, and talk through some of my successes, some of my failures, which should be almost celebrated as much as the successes, hopefully give you a little bit of insight into how to potentially grow your business and some of the challenges that you might have to face and overcome. A little bit about me. I did a degree in philosophy, bizarrely, and ended up as a recruitment consultant. I'd worked for a very good little small business based in Guildford as a recruitment consultant. Bizarrely, I fell into recruitment consultancy, sat on the side of a yacht one day, which is a major passion of mine, is sailing. Sat on the side of a yacht one day, chatting to the guy next to me who happened to be a recruitment consultant. Said, that sounds interesting. Why don't I have a look into that? So I actually had an interview with the company he worked for, as I said, based in Guildford, recruiting building services engineers. Not that I had any clue what a building services engineer did or does. Someone might argue that I still don't. And worked for that little business, and it was a good little business. Maximum sort of seven staff. The only slight issue was the MD of that business, who was a terribly nice chap to go for a beer with, used the business as his own personal cash cow. So we were always getting chased down for money while he was building his house in Spain. The company even had a company yacht in the south of France. Yet couldn't pay its bills. So after about 3 years there, decided that it was time to move on, and got on very well with one of the other directors there. And he said, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm thinking about moving on. Why don't we have a conversation about setting up something together?" So in April 2002, we launched Energi Recruitment Services Limited to give it its full legal title. It's still the same entity that we set up in 2002. First few years, we run it very much as a lifestyle type of business. I was still doing an awful lot of sailing at that point. Ran it from a small office in a place called Crondall, which is just south of Farnham, literally out of a farm shed near enough. But after a couple of years, decided that we would start taking it a little bit more seriously. Moved ourselves into a much larger office in Aldershot, Wesley Chambers, which is a converted church, and really started to grow the business. Still very much doing what we were doing before. We were good recruitment consultants, but could we run a business? Yes, we could, and we did. We were carried along very, very successfully with the construction boom of the mid-2000s, both in the UK and in the Middle East. We spent most of the mid-2000s shipping UK expat engineers out to Dubai and shipping Polish engineers from Krakow or Warsaw across to London. And we started to grow the business very, very successfully at that point, or very rapidly. The only downside was, at that point, we put absolutely no management structure, no management information in place. And we did pretty well, but that was our management tool. We would literally put our finger in the air and see which way the wind was blowing, which, as you're being carried along by a growing market and growing, actually works quite well, to be frank, or it did for us. The challenges come when it's not going so well and the market isn't with you quite so well. But during that period, from 2005, we took on the offices in Chambers through to the beginning or middle of the credit crunch. We grew the business up to 20 staff, probably had a turnover around about £3 million pounds at that point. So it was, again, a sensible sized business. But with the coming along of the credit crunch, construction stopped pretty much UK-wide. We were protected by the first part of the credit crunch because the little bit of strategy that we did have was that we diversified and separated into two different markets. So we were looking at the UK market and the Dubai market. And though it had started to gradually wind down in the UK, probably from the beginning of end of 2007, definitely beginning of 2008. That was, I think it's something like the Tuesday, the 30th or 16th of September 2008, I think that paper actually came out. And that was when it started really crashing in Dubai. And I can still see my spreadsheets. We had a right challenge that when it really went wrong in Dubai, because we had people who'd sold houses that were moving out to Dubai. We had all sorts. Literally one after another, one Monday morning, clients were just ringing up telling us that the candidates could rip up their offer letters because they were absolutely worthless. By hook or by crook, we managed to get quite an awful lot of those placements out to Dubai in the January. But we went from £100,000 worth of permanent placements in the January 2009, which I think actually was our highest permanent month ever at that point, to £2,000 in February. which was a little bit of a challenge. While things were going well, we could manage people on their sales figures and a few things like that. But as soon as the credit crunch kicked in, what we couldn't do was manage people on sales figures when nobody is selling anything, and trying to work out who was good and who was being effective in the business and who wasn't being effective in the business is really challenging when you've got absolutely no data. So we made, I'll quite honestly hold my hand, we made horrendous management decisions on the basis that we didn't actually have any information to make the decisions based on, and that makes it much, much more challenging. We muddled our way through the credit crunch in 2009, actually started to grow again a little bit in 2010, but unfortunately right at the end of 2010, again, no strategy, no real management experience at that point. A couple of companies went belly up on us, owing us large sums of money, which meant we had to completely restructure the business. My original business partner, Nick, had decided that effectively he wasn't up for the challenge and wanted to wind up the business and go and work for somebody else. I wasn't overly keen on that idea. Spent about a week of sleepless nights, sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to work out how I was going to rescue the business, and came up with a plan. Bought the business off Nick, which at the time paid a little bit, well, no, actually a reasonable amount of money for a business that was worthless. But I knew that or had a really good feeling that it was the right thing to be doing. So paid Nick off, got him out of the business, and really set about from that point onwards, looking at how I was going to build the business bigger, better, stronger, and much more importantly, more sustainably. And in this instance, I'm not talking about green credentials. Over the course of that period, the business effectively wound back down to being myself and a very, very good part-time bookkeeper. Anyway, it was a massive, massive support during that period of time, and really helped me look at how I was going to build it bigger, better, stronger. I think we wrote a business plan. I remember sitting down with you and writing a business plan. But at that point, what I really also saw was, though it was definitely no shame to be in a position that I'd found myself in, or the business had found itself in, what I'd also noticed during that period were hundreds of recruitment businesses had gone to the wall, but there were recruitment businesses operating in the same sector as me that had grown. And I was trying to find out what they were doing differently to everybody else that had enabled them to grow during those periods, that really made me seek out a non-exec director. I was lucky to find at that point a very good guy, or I think he's very good. He's now been with the business for getting on 10 years, who had just finished up being CEO of a £100 million turnover recruitment business. He had joined the business as a recruitment consultant and had worked his way all the way through to being CEO. So he, Emma and I went and met him up in London, and it's very funny, isn't it? And you now talk about these stories because we've got quite a strong relationship these days. And he was very nervous because even though he was a CEO of a £100 million turnover business, or he had been up until that point, this was his first foray into becoming a non-exec director. I was extremely nervous because walking into a situation going, this guy's had a £100 million turnover business and I'm now back to being myself, and is he really going to believe the fact that this is my vision and can I deliver on it, on how I want to build the business bigger, better, stronger, etc. But one of the things that we've spoken about earlier, the other reason, or one of the major reasons I sought out a non-exec director was the accountability piece. If I don't have anybody to be accountable to, and in those previous 8-9 years of running the business, Nick and I had come up with really good ideas over the years, but had we ever followed them through? Some of them we had, most we hadn't, because we didn't have anybody to actually be accountable to. So nobody was sat on us on a monthly basis saying, have you done this? And it's not even the fact that you have to do it. But with a good non-exec, they'll keep reminding you, and then they'll say, actually, if you're not doing it, you don't want to do it, so don't do it, and we'll take it off the to-do list. And it's all those sorts of things. The accountability is a huge part for me. So, as I often think, I paid somebody a huge amount of money just to come down and kick my arse every month. But he was really good. He was really good at holding me accountable to how I was going to, what actions I needed to do to work on the business, not just work in the business. In those early days, I think he would count them as counselling sessions. I would get on the couch and he would very much psychoanalyse me for those periods and try and get me back into some sort of straight thinking. The other major reason that I decided that I would take on a non-exec director was to enable rapid growth. Using somebody else's experience to accelerate the growth in your business is massive. And they will come up with ideas. A good non-exec director will come up with ideas, use them as a sounding board, often more importantly, give you the confidence that you are making the right decision. And a lot of the things that hold us back as business owners is actually having the confidence in our decision-making process. We think it's a good idea, but if it's only a think, and when you get to soundboard it off somebody and they go, yeah, no, it's a really great idea, that gives you so much more energy. You put so much more energy into that activity, and therefore it's much more likely to be successful. If you go at things half-heartedly, as we know, they tend not to work out in the best way. If you go at it hard, I was also a rugby player in my younger days, and it was the old saying of, if you went into a tackle half-heartedly, you would get hurt. If you went in full-on, you always were fine. And that was so true. And it's the same in business. If you actually go in hard, but to do that, you've got to have the confidence to do it. And that part of that will enable you to grow much more rapidly as a business. What should they do? How should they help you out? There are hundreds of words on there that they should actually be helping you out with as a non-exec director. If we're running small businesses, micro businesses, you need somebody who has a generalist experience, not a specialist experience. If we were much larger, had much larger turnovers, then you can start adding in some specialist experience onto your board. But as a starting point, they've got to help you out on strategy. They've got to help you out on commercial decisions, finding clients, growing, employees, making good staffing, recruitment decisions. As we know, the vast majority of businesses are successful because of the people that are in them. So that's a huge, huge piece that they've got to help you out with. But they should be testing you all the time, testing that decision-making process. They are there, as BiZHUB's caveat earlier, they're there to give you guidance. They're not there to tell you what to do, and they should never. You shouldn't really ever be doing it just because that's what they told you to do. It should be because you've had a sensible conversation and they've helped you come to a sensible decision, and you are fully committed to making that decision. One of the major things that Andrew's done for us over the years is gives us outsized visibility into what everybody else is doing. So he works as a non-exec for a number of different businesses. Some of them are probably even a bit close as competing businesses, one might argue. But if you can trust the individual that you're working with, then why would that ever be a problem? They're not ever going to share commercial information, but what they will share is what other people are doing in the market and what other people are seeing happen in the market. Because as a business owner, it's very easy to get yourself into a situation where you're thinking that what is happening to you is happening to the wider market. And often that isn't the case. It's about you've got yourself into a rut, into thinking that things are going badly and the world is against you in terms of even things like we've seen at the moment, petrol strikes or lack of petrol, etc. All of that can affect your psychology about how you're thinking. But if somebody else is telling you, no, actually, the rest of the market or the clients that I operate with are seeing growth, or they're seeing this, or they're seeing that. And sometimes it's even that really nice point of they walked in, we're growing quite nicely and finding sales relatively easy, to find the rest of the market actually is struggling. And that gives you a nice little boost on occasions. But they give you that eyes and ears of what else is happening out there in the world, what other people are doing, whether it be new products, new services, what else you could be adding to your portfolio. For me, one of the major things that a non-exec director should be helping you with is a strategic direction. Where are you looking to take the business? And then, but it's you who's looking to take the business there, but what he should be helping you come up with that strategy of how you, I'm using the male pronoun because Andrew's male, but they could be obviously female, but in this case, strategic direction. Where are you looking to take the business? And that should be an ongoing conversation, constantly. Monitoring direct performance, holding me and the rest of the board accountable for what we are doing, and making sure that we are fit for purpose. If we're not being sent on training, if we see weaknesses, sending us on training courses to improve those weaknesses, making sure that the right people in the business are doing the right job, all that sort of thing. And a big one for me, managing risk, helping the business manage the risk in the business and the threats. Again, as they often say, a problem shared is a problem halved. It's using those sorts of things to help you manage the risk and see where the dangers are within the business that might come to damage the business. Enough on non-exec directors. Changing gears. I think one of the hardest things to do as a small business is to change gears. Go from being a micro business to being sort of 1-2 staff to even 5 staff to 10 staff to 20 to 25 staff and then beyond. Each one of those is actually quite a big gear change. Mentioned earlier, I'm a very passionate sailor, and sailing, particularly when you're racing competitively, the conditions are constantly changing, literally constantly changing. The wind direction is constantly changing, the speed of the wind is constantly changing, the tide is constantly changing on you, the sea state is constantly changing. And you have, as a business owner, it's very similar in business. And when you're a small business and you're very close to the front edge of that business, your hands are literally on the things that are giving you the feedback all the time. In sailing terms, it's if you're Ben Ainsley, it's the main sheet and the tiller, and that's giving him feedback all the time, and it's constant. As you grow as a business, you are no longer directly in touch with the bits that give you that feedback. Quite often that'll be the client and the customers, though it is other things within the business, it might be the staff. Trying to get the right information back from the staff that you might have, whilst you're growing the business, when you're growing the business, is really, really, really challenging. So making that transition from being Ben Ainsley sailing his laser to being the captain of a ship where you've got 5, 10, 20 people on the boat, and they're all now doing the jobs that you used to do yourself, and they are going to do them differently to you. They're also not necessarily going to give you the same information back that you're used to receiving. And that challenge of changing how you behave, changing how the business behaves is really, really, really difficult. It's one of the major things, looking back in 2008, 2010, why the business effectively failed at that point, was we had none of the right feedback information telling us what was happening. Definitely done it better in the last 10 years, but I can still see significant blocks when we've grown. We grew very rapidly in the first 3 years, from around 2012 to 2015. We went from 3 to 15 staff in a period of about 3 years, and grew from turnover. We were getting, I think we grew nigh on 100% in the first year, 50% in the second year, and over 40% in the third year in terms of both turnover and profitability. But again, we hit a block around that 15 staff number. Didn't have the right managers in place. Though we had much better MI, or management information, than we had in 2008, it still wasn't good enough and still wasn't feeding back enough information to us. So it's weathering that storm of trying to challenge and getting the right people in the business, or the right systems and processes in the business to help you change gears, is really, really quite a challenge. As I said, we've definitely done it better. I now have so much more information available to me than I've ever had, and that's the great thing about living in the age that we now live in, actually that information is relatively easy to put into your business and get, with relatively cost-effective systems, get good feedback along those lines. Creating a culture. Why culture eats strategy for breakfast? Creating the right company culture is really difficult. And bizarrely, that was one of the major reasons we were so successful back in 2005 to 2008-9, was actually we had a really, really good culture in the business. That's why one of the reasons we didn't need a strategy, and it was only when things started to go wrong that we were really highlighted. Because when things start going wrong, particularly in a recruitment business, unfortunately the culture disintegrates pretty quickly, because the culture that we had built up was based on sales and having fun because we were making good money and that sort of thing, which was a good culture. Might be not a culture that I would have necessarily want to associate with these days, but it was very much that type of culture, and it was a good culture. And I can look back again through the last 10 years, and we've had some very successful periods and very not as successful as I would have liked them to be periods. And actually, I can, if we'd had the stats to monitor it at those points, I would have said at those points the culture was in a good place, and when the business wasn't going so well, it was when culture was actually not in a very, very good place at all. Some things that you need to do to create a really good culture. Create shared goals, talk about those goals, but make sure they're realistic, because there's nothing worse than trying to create goals that aren't realistic, because nobody actually believes in them, and that will destroy the culture as quickly as it creates it. So you've got to have shared goals in a business. It's got to be communicated on a regular basis. Recruitment. Getting the right people on board. Again, that's a huge, huge challenge. How do you know whether they're the right people? I'm a recruitment consultant. Most of the time, we're sat there trying to figure out what makes a good recruitment consultant. And if I ever manage to find what that formula is, I'd be at least as wealthy as James Caan. But there are an awful lot of tools to help you do that these days. But it's also, for me, the recruitment piece is much, much more about personality. In the business that I run, it's a lot more about those people with that growth mindset. I love the fact that BiZHUB, one of the words was grow. And that's not because we all want to become multi-billionaires. It's because we want to grow as individuals. So what we're concentrating on these days is people with a growth mindset, trying to find those individuals that really actually do want to grow as individual people. Encouraging positivity, sharing the wins is huge. And making sure that you don't have energy suckers out there. Encouraging collaboration or teamwork. Again, making sure that the people really do feel as part of a team. You can do that in obviously many ways, but literally from either creating, if you're a smaller business, just that team within itself, but also teams within the team. So, but trying not to move away from that bigger picture. Listening, again, really difficult to do. You've got an awful lot of, as your business grows, you'll have so much noise coming at you from people sticking their hand up saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. And actually trying to make that time to listen to people and get that feedback is really, really tricky. Drive off your current culture. Don't try and change the culture like that in an instant. It's got to come slowly and progressively. And you'll always find good things in the culture that you already have. And it's building on the top of those good things, not trying to wipe the slate clean and create a culture straight from nothing. Going back to that recruitment piece, and I've seen this hundreds of times now, it only takes one bad apple to completely destroy the culture that you might have in the business. Particularly when you're a smaller business. It really just absolutely pervades through, particularly if they are completely rotten. And they are the only thing, and this is, again, sort of advice for myself, which I haven't really taken, is if you see that, act really quickly and get rid of it as quickly as you can, because it will destroy your business quicker than anything. Your good staff will be demotivated, disengaged, and you'll start losing them really, really quickly. I've never seen something destroy a business quite as quick. Even in a good market, it'll make running your business so much more challenging if you've got one bad apple. Bit of boring stuff in my eyes. I'm a recruitment consultant. We're bloody useless at process and systems. Absolutely useless. Because part of the reason being, we're just being proactive all the time and then reacting to what's coming back in at us. But in saying that, for running a business, having really, really good process and systems is essential. And it will enable you to replicate the same service, the same transactions time and time again, quickly and efficiently, and also understand when things are going wrong so much quicker if you've got good process and systems. We've spent fortunes on our systems over the last 2 years, and we're seeing huge benefits of actually having the right systems in place. They are by far the best investments I've probably made, apart from the staff, in the last few years. They just help me understand what is going on in the business so much clearer. And going back to that whole being the captain of the ship scenario, I'm actually now starting to get the same sort of quality of information that I did when I was sat being on the desk as a recruitment consultant myself. I can predict exactly how much we're going to build next month on the amount of interviews we've booked this month. I can tell you exactly how many interviews we'll have this month by the amount of CVs we've sent out this month. I can tell how many vacancies we're going to get by the amount of telephone calls that have been made. And all that just makes me feel much more in control as a manager of the business. And nobody wants to be on that ship if the captain is running around like a headless chicken. And if you can feel in control, you will exude that, and you'll be much more effective. manager. Yeah, last little bit. You can't manage what you can't measure. Everything, genuinely down to everything, you should be measuring in the business as much as you can, because if you can measure it, you can manage it. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And in recruitment consulting, we have those key metrics: the interviews, CV sends, time on the telephone, those sorts of key metrics. You can start to manage those and manage those effectively. We don't beat people around the head with our standards, as we call them, but you need to be able to manage that, whether you're supplying cleaning services, coffee, whatever it is. You need to be measuring exactly what is happening within the business. I like that little cartoon. It's so true. That was the message I wanted to leave you with today. The more you can work on your business, the better the business will be. We're all really good, generally, as small business owners. We're all really good at doing the thing that we were good at. I was an okay recruitment consultant, but that doesn't necessarily make you a good business leader and business manager. And learning how to do that and the challenge of doing that is a great fun challenge. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've done over the last 20 years. But hopefully I've given you a little bit of insight into the successes and failures that I've had, and a little bit of the challenges. I could talk for probably another fair few hours on some of the other things that I think are important in running and managing a business. But for today, I think that's enough.
That's my little voluntary you've got on the side. Welcome back, hello, and hopefully a comfort break. What a great journey. Thrills and spills, ups and downs. Some great clarity around the strategic problems there, and that's the thing that's going to push the business forward. Alex, would you like to join us on stage? Join us at the front. And we'll take some questions. Any questions arising? Sarah, you
We reward them in lots of different ways. We're constantly working on it. So being in recruitment, the primary reward is commission. So they get commission on the sales that they make, and that can be very, very lucrative. In recruitment, a good consultant can easily add 50% of their salary, and 50% more than their salary on commission. Very good one, 100%, and guys earn 300%, 400% of their salary if they're exceptional or lucky, because sometimes it's the account that they run. But we do a lot of things like, at the moment we genuinely are having an employee of the week, and you might even think that's very sort of McDonald's sort of management style, and for a more mature employee base that might not be suitable. They love it. Genuinely, absolutely love it. The way we do it literally is Nick and I and James will get together and we'll look at some of the stats, but we don't only base it around stats. We look at improvement and various other bits and pieces and good success. And they get to draw an envelope, and the envelope will have either a £10 Amazon voucher in it or something along those lines, all the way through to a meal for two at Lortland, which is a Michelin-star restaurant. Those sorts of, so it costs the business over a period of about a quarter. It probably costs the business no more than £600-700 for the envelopes, but get massive amounts of engagement out of that. We do, over the years, we've taken staff to Barcelona.
Did you bring them back?
Yes, that's right. On occasion, yeah, exactly. Monaco and various other places if they've been really, really high performers. It's using as many of but it's often just that recognition piece. Unfortunately, it feels like we always need to give something along with the recognition. We've even given little plastic trophies in the past that actually went down really well, and people had them sat on their desks for years afterwards. Yeah. So there's lots of actually really, really good ways. And these days, the fact we can self-publicise that makes it even more rewarding. So make sure that the Employee of the Week goes out on LinkedIn. It gets shared on the internal intranet and all those sorts of things. Particularly if you've got a workforce that's either working from home or is spread around various different locations, you still need to make sure that they get the recognition and celebration, etc.
One of the things that the researchers found is, I think £82,000 was found to be the ceiling for happiness. Anything over that, people didn't feel any happier. But what gave people more satisfaction in their job was peer recognition. So being recognised as being particularly effective in your role by the organisations and the customers that tended to help with staff retention.
Staying on the theme of culture, and you talked about when it goes bad, have you got any tips on how to bring it back and make it better again? Because I'm sure that's quite difficult.
It is really difficult. Over the years, we've got one on Monday. We do a half-year and an annual meeting to try and keep that culture message going through, and what it is to be a good Energi People employee. As much communication is probably the biggest point. Some good things came out of last year in COVID. I actually got round to actually finally writing a monthly newsletter to the staff, and that goes out monthly. And it's all those sorts of things that actually help you to keep control of that cultural piece. We as a business are spending an awful lot of time on that now. The business, I see it, is actually sort of in three different parts of its life. So up until 2010, we call Energy 1.0. After that, up until COVID, is Energy 2.0. And what I'm really working on at the moment is what we're calling Energy 3.0. And a large part of the central piece around Energy 3.0 is that cultural piece and trying to make sure, A, we get it to where we want it to be, but then very much keep it there.
Dane?
Yeah, I just want to say in on culture. I worked in businesses in the past where they've set up a wonderful culture. We, when we were in the senior team, we always joke that it's forced fun.
Yeah.
How do you not make those newsletters and communication forced fun and have the culture being lived and breathed by the team?
I think that's a really good point. I don't think there's an easy answer to that, because we try and do things, and you're quite right, quite often people will interpret that these days as forced fun. But I think where that's happening is concentrating on the wrong things. It's concentrating on, right, we'll get a really good culture by taking everybody down the pub every week and buying them a beer. That actually doesn't give you a good company culture. It might help to get, but that's not going to make everything different on a day-to-day basis within the business. Though we should be doing team building events and those sorts of things, which could also be considered forced fun, it's making sure that they're appropriate and right for the people who want to do them. Strange enough, we're herding ducks on Monday afternoon, but it works quite well in recruitment because recruitment is literally like herding ducks. I don't know whether it will be considered as forced fun or whether it will go down well. But it really, I get the point. It's really difficult, that line between actually creating events that people are going to genuinely enjoy, rather than, right, we're all here, we're going to put a smile on our face and drink a beer, but I actually don't like the bloke sat next to me.
It's the suit, isn't it? I know.
It's quite difficult. Yeah.
Sarah?
I have got a few questions, so I might be hounding you.
That's right.
But I wanted to ask you, in all of this journey, how many times have you looked at things like your fees and your terms and pricing amongst your business journey, and possibly in terms of looking to future-proof?
One of the things I've looked at it a couple of times. We've tried to do some quite creative things around pricing structure and fees, which is really difficult. It's been really hard because of it's actually deeply ingrained in the wider world out there. Recruitment consultants charge a percentage fee of the starting salary. And as soon as you try and change that conversation with them and say, actually, we could actually be much more creative. We could do it on a fixed fee, and it's going to be £4,000. Well, actually, and if you do it with us exclusively, it will be £3,500. I don't know, we pay them 12%, so that's the deal we want to do with you. No, you're not listening, and it's trying to. I think recruitment consultancy can be a lot more creative in its financial structure. It's how we get change the conversation with the clients is the real challenge. Because often they just don't want to listen. As we know as recruitment consultants, find me somebody to start tomorrow. What do you want? I don't know. I'm a mechanical engineer. Haven't got time now. Bye. Is quite often yeah. When do you want somebody? Yesterday. And they don't want to engage in that conversation piece around fee structure. It's something that I think that can be really quite nicely worked on.
You talked there about when times are good, you roll on that vein, and when times bad things happen. Have you looked at how to, like I said, future-proof a bit more, or just, set some aside, or be realistic about your cash flow and not see it all as...
The good thing is we've always been quite realistic about the cash flow, particularly in Energi 2.0. We don't fleece the business, so there's always plenty of cash reserves. We came through COVID very, very nicely because we had plenty of cash reserves. We did make redundancies, but they were strategic, not financially based. It gave us a good opportunity to trim some of the fat, as they might rightly say, which you always got to do, particularly in any business of 25 people or more. You are going to be carrying some fat, and that needs trimming. And things like COVID, unfortunately, give you a good opportunity to do that.
Ed.
Yeah, you mentioned sort of bad apples.
Yeah.
My first job was in a door-to-door sales company, so I know about commission-based sales and all that sort of stuff. Is a bad apple, can a bad apple be a good salesman? And would you
almost definitely.
Would you get rid of them? And also
yes.
On that basis, like you obviously said, I met someone in a recruitment company went set up. If you have people who have stolen your clients set up against you through your journey.
Two separate questions. The bad apple question is yes, definitely. I've got a couple of examples in mind where, particularly in recruitment, being selfish actually is quite a good trait, or can for that individual, but for the wider business, it's not.
Yeah.
Because it really does start destroying.
Is there cockiness and so people who aren't necessarily as good as that?
Sometimes it's cockiness. Sometimes it's really quite subversive behaviour. We had one person that was really good at going around and buying people nice little gifts and things like that, making them really feel like they were their friends, and then just completely stabbing them in the back, and just really good at asking for help, but then making sure that everybody was feathering their nest, but then not helping out the other way.
Would you get rid of someone like that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It took me too long.
Yeah.
I won't to get rid of them. She eventually gave me the opportunity, so pushed her out pretty quickly. But there are sometimes you don't know, and that's the big difficulty is identifying them and identifying them early, and then cutting them out pretty quickly. As a business. Sorry, your second question was.
Oh, just on the in recruitment, it seems that there's if you do very well, you tend to potentially set up your own thing.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we again we've had it numerous times. Out of all, well, genuinely, I think there's now 5 people who've set up in business after leaving directly from me, and every single one of them has disappeared within 12 months. the one worked for us for a period, then went off for joined somebody else for about a year, and then set up on the own. He's doing very well for himself. The biggest issue in recruitment, the bit that they don't see, is chasing the cash and actually having somebody to celebrate your wins with and pick you up on a bad day. And sat in your bedroom doing it, it sounds great. Last month I billed 15 grand. If I was doing that for myself, I'd take all £15,000 home. And then reality comes crashing in that actually, as we know as business owners, that out of that £15,000, not a lot of it ends up in your own pocket. And then there's also the mental side of it, the actual. So it's really difficult. I've chased one quite hard. Cost me a lot of money to shut them. That one I did shut down because we have restrictive covenants, and they were literally riding roughshod all over the restrictive covenants. But it cost them quite a bit of money, but it still cost me, or cost the business quite a lot of money.
Andy had his hand raised.
I was just going to say, one of my greatest challenges is a financial services company 10 years ago. The bottom salespeople, people you hope had in their resignation, want to work with you forever. And the top salespeople sort of delude themselves that they can now run businesses and this and the other. Even if they are destined to go bust after 6 months, if they didn't try to switch up and leave, that actually doesn't help you.
No.
You want them to stay in your business. My solution to that problem was actually to have a career progression that led them to being a business owner, under the umbrella where they own their own company, and we would handhold them, and we would do all the bits, all of the infrastructure bits that salespeople hate. So even provide them access to the admin team in the office, even though they're now their own business and stuff. And yes, we've made less money out of them on that way of doing things, but we would at least retain what they would need. It was partially successful because you cannot, unfortunately, put a lid on the arrogance once it's out of the box. And once they're in that franchise, they then think they can do it even better. And yes, I've seen, like you said, I've seen those offshoots, and then we fell out, and then they went bust. Doesn't help them, but didn't help us either. But there is no easy way to encourage top salespeople to stay where it's done, is there?
No, I completely agree with that. And there is a part of me, we're sat here as small business owners, and I did it many years ago, that says, actually, they should be allowed to do it and see what the challenges are. So I genuinely try not to come down on people too hard when they do it. For me, one of the reasons I actually run a business, genuinely, is because I want to see people grow. And when they grow and they go on and do bigger and better things, I actually get really great satisfaction out of that. It's when, to be frank, when they leave just to set up their own business to go and run it out their bedroom, I go, well, that's not exactly that exciting. But if they go on and do bigger, better things, it makes me feel really, really, really happy. If they go sideways or downwards, then I'm not so convinced, because that's part of my job as a business owner, as I see it, is to make people better.
Dave.
Business improvement. How do you encourage your staff to actually come up with some business improvement ideas rather than just having a suggestion box at the end of the table? Have you done anything around that at all?
The only things that we currently do about that, and it is something I would like to do more of, but is to have the things like the day that we'll have on Monday, where quite a bit of it is me stood up in front of them talking, but then we'll do lots of different exercises in the afternoon where we're encouraging them to talk to us and actually really just come up with ideas. So we're not telling them what the business is. They get an opportunity to create the business around the branding piece, around the marketing piece. Some of it we do quite a lot on an internal employee feedback. There's actually a really good little piece of online software called Office Vibe, which just sends them a little email every week, I think it is, and they get asked 5 questions, and it's always like on a sliding scale type thing. And actually, what it gives us is really good feedback into how that cultural piece is going and how they're feeling, and whether they feel that they can. One of the parts of that is whether they can communicate with their line managers, and whether their line managers actually listen to them, which hopefully, if that's a reasonably high score, you know you're getting that feedback in from them. Because there is always that trying to break down that us and them barrier, that they can actually come and talk to us, because we are human beings and we don't know everything. And if they're on the front line, they might know more about it than we do.
Sarah?
I've been saying this one. How are you currently recruiting for your own staff, and what's the process you go through at the moment to hire your own staff for your business?
We tried various things a lot over the years. We've tried having an internal talent acquisition person. We tried using recruiters, which we haven't had much success with, which is really quite bad, isn't it? But anyway, at the moment, we're tending to do, the management team are now actually performance managed on how many people we contact in a month as to directly employ them. We do use a rec to rec, but we found if we just want to fill seats, the talent acquisition person was really good, because obviously they were very much targeted on filling seats. But actually, if we want to get, as I said, people who fit better for the business, then actually the management team having responsibility over that to go and try and attract talent.
People looking for a career with you.
So not just a job. So now, yeah, as I said, we're trying to concentrate it and make sure that we're engaging with new employees on a monthly basis.
Random people, boats and buses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a particular question. A lot of the BiZHUB members are one-man bands. They have small, or a very small team. How did you transition from it being just you after you left your business partner, and obviously with your wonderful bookkeeper, to multiple employees and a growing business? Because that's the trap that a lot of small businesses get into. They are delivering the business, so they don't get the time to grow the business.
And it is a real difficult challenge. Strange enough, my business partner now was in exactly that point. He was running his recruitment business, his self-employed recruitment business, from his spare bedroom. Financially, incredibly successful, but he had got to the point where he was actually reconsidering going back out to be an employee, because actually sitting in his own spare bedroom was not the right thing to do. So when I approached him about actually forming a partnership together, and that's probably the easiest route for me out from that situation, because people going out and getting employees is going to be easier if there's two of you, because the idea of going and joining a one-man band
Yeah,
is
been there.
It's quite challenging,
Yeah.
and I get it from their point of view. They're worried. There's always this perception around small businesses that they're much more vulnerable than larger businesses. Over the years, I probably but there is that perception. Therefore, do I go and join a one-man band? As soon as you've got two of you, you've got some sort of critical mass, and it becomes easier to
that first employee is always a difficult hire. It's almost like your first girlfriend. You always remember them for all of the good stuff and all of the bad stuff and how crap you were at dealing with it.
Difficult hire and probably the most critical hire.
Yeah.
And getting that person right, because they suddenly become, going back to that cultural piece, they suddenly become a major influencer on the culture of the business. Because if there's only 3 of you, or 2 or 3 of you, at that point, they will become a major cultural influence.
Yes,
on the
yeah.
business.
Emma.
I just wanted to talk about your running. You mentioned that you were running 2,000 miles in 2021. How's it going? Do you feel that it's positively impacted your business?
Yes and yes. It's going well. I've yesterday just went through 1,500 miles, so I'm on track. I think I'm about 15 miles behind where I needed to be, or should be, which is actually quite good because I had got out to 50 miles behind where I had needed to be and had to bring it back. Yeah, I heard you mention marathon. So yeah, effectively I'm running marathon and a half every week at the moment. I do it on the reason I chose that goal was I always like something to focus on. So normally would either be a 10K or possibly a half marathon, or if I'm feeling really ambitious, a marathon. And because of COVID, they all started getting cancelled left, right and centre, and couldn't commit that there was going to be, every time because they had been cancelled previously, even if I put myself into the Farnborough half or whatever it was, there was no guarantee it was going to happen. So therefore, that was already in the back of my head and wasn't motivating me to go running. So I just thought, right, in for a penny, in for a pound, 2,021 miles in 2021. What it's taught me about business, what it's taught me again, which I really wish I'd learned this lesson and it would go in, is actually, if I sit down, set out a target, make sure it's trackable, and if it is, you're so much more likely to hit it if you track it, measure it, and go at it that way. So yes, it's made me think so much more about making sure things are measurable and trackable, and making sure that I go onto my spreadsheet every day to fill in how many miles I've run. So that's probably my major lesson out of business from it.
The keyboard player for Rammstein on stage plays the keyboard and has a jogging machine because he wasn't getting enough movement. So his doctor said he should go running. So he didn't want to get up early and do it. So he does it on stage. Maybe you could get one at your desk.
Yeah.
Like, one of those standing desks.
Yeah. Treadmill on the desk.
Get in
exactly.
a quick 5K, Sarah.
It's interesting that you say that humanity, and good luck with your last few thousand miles.
Yeah, exactly.
Because having worked with a more corporate business for 15 years, and being in the top 20 of 500 staff UK business, pretty much most of it. What you said about reporting figures and reporting back and that cultural side, is that when you know your KPIs and you've been a bit long-standing, you almost like beat yourself up more than your manager could ever do.
Oh yeah.
You know. But it's the small tweaks for consultants.
Yeah.
So, like you said, that change of like one more interview per week, one more vacancy is the impact that's going to follow through over 6 weeks, 3 months.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people don't need beating up too much if they sometimes it can be just a half more person to interview.
Yeah.
But those sorts of ideas around a Monday morning, a Wednesday, and a Friday, and everything like kind of stopped around making sure that those were recorded and in.
Yeah.
And the way that the business grew to a super brand was that was replicated all the time and was the most important factor. So it's those little tweaks you were talking about. So
yeah, definitely.
I did 0 to 5K.
Yeah, that is a key
That's a win.
Yeah.
A win. Absolutely.
Just on that figures thing, because reporting figures to staff is a dangerous game to me, because they don't know what the sales mean, they don't know what your overheads are, they don't know,
Yeah.
So so how much information do you actually allow staff to have against what is motivating them and what actually can become demotivating? Because they go, oh, they made 10 grand last week, or turn over 10 grand last week, and they've got no idea what that means in a bigger scale of
Yeah, I'm always of the opinion that they should know as much as we know.
Okay.
It really helps build that trust point. But going back to the figures point of view, we don't give blanket KPIs. But what you can show them is actually by marginal increases, as Sarah I think was pointing, that they will get so much more out of it. So it's not saying, right, for talking CVs, talking my language, right, the company standard is 25 CVs a week, right, we'll look over your average and you're getting 8. You're blinking useless, get out type of scenario. We don't have, yes, the suggested target is 25, but I'm not talking about 25. What I need you to work on is getting that 8 to 9, from that 9 to 10, and not worrying about the standards and things like that, and showing them the benefit to them or the business of why that would make a substantial difference. And
so back to them, effectively.
Yeah, always relate it back to them and why. Ideally, if you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it does have to be about the business, but it's in their interest. They work for the business, and therefore they should be interested. Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you're selling your business or you're selling your services, you want to think about it from the customer's point of view. What is the biggest benefit to them that you can talk about? So think about it from the employer's point of view. What numbers make sense to them and they can use and you can use with them to help motivate them?
Well, I think it's a big issue with hospitality. My experience over 20 years is it can be a culture killer.
Yeah. I don't know.
They don't understand. They don't understand they're spending £20,000 a year with gas and electricity to warm a pub, but they're getting £9.50 an hour.
Yeah.
They see this coming into the till and they go, well,
yeah,
we're making loads of money. Hot.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. I think it must change between businesses.
Oh, it definitely
What I
changes.
take from you is that if they're going to have figures, it needs to be incentivised to them, so they actually mean something. So
Yeah.
From £10,000 to £11,000 means 50 quid in your pocket. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily you can do straight away. You hire someone, you can't incentivise them straight away. So
Food analogies in hospitality can be really good.
we don't serve food. We have a bar in the shed, but I mean I've been running pubs for 20 years. It's a difficult one because staff inherently, especially younger staff and students and people like that, they can tend to have a very focused effect on what I'm getting.
Yeah.
My tips, how much I'm getting, or the boss is getting too much. It's quite difficult.
But you could talk around career progression because a lot of people see it as casual work. But there can be a decent career in hospitality. When you're working at fine dining establishments and you're at the top of your game, you can be earning multiple thousands of pounds a month, and showing them that you know, you could be a stepping stone into something better and giving them a career progression. That can be very motivating, not just, as I was saying.
About the figure sharing, I was asking you.
For sure, for sure.
The figures and the KPIs and the actual how the business is doing, whether that's relevant to employees.
No, as Alex said, make it relevant. Put the numbers in front of them that make sense to them. Yeah. If that's it, I think we've reached the end. Do you have one more point, Alex?
One more.
Alex?
Sort of on that subject, really good book called The Culture Code. Daniel somebody, but it's really good on, he talks, one of his major examples is a guy in hospitality in New York who's, by all accounts, made lots and lots of money in various different restaurant establishments, owns lots of it, and it's about that setting that cultural piece probably more for you guys than it is around how many beers you serve or how many, because that they would struggle to influence. How many, apart from possibly if there's a long queue at the bar, how quickly they serve will influence that, but actually getting people into the bar, that's not really their job, so...
But it's as important, a smile is as good as anything else in the trade.
Yeah, but that whole cultural piece, that was a really interesting section that I found in that book.
The Culture Code.
Daniel Coyle.
Daniel Coyle. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Give Alex another round of applause. Thank you so much for coming, Alex. We're back next week with our very own Dane Cartwright, who's coming along to talk us how he's coping with growth, slow growth over a number of years versus a short sprint and an extremely bright outlook. It will be an interesting comparison. Thank you so much for coming. Do book ahead of time. We've got a great collaboration session planned for this month and the mini mastermind as well at the end of the month. So do book on, do let us know you're coming because we have to plan resources. Thanks for coming today. Have a great Friday, have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Thanks for coming to the BiZHUB. Cheers. Bye-bye.